I wanted to start off with this news that came out the other day with Bryce Young and how the Carolina Panthers are benching him after an 0-2 start. Last season, they didn't have a good season as well. They ended up with a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. This season, they start off 0-2. So they're trying to make some drastic changes. The GM, the coaches, the whole front office, they're like, yo, you know what? I think it's time to bench Bryce and put in Andy Dalton. He has shown that he can win in this league. He's been to the playoffs. He hasn't had a lot of success in the playoffs, but he's had a lot of success of winning games. Now,
Absolutely.
with all that said, man, what is your take on this whole Bryce Young being benched?
It's been a total organizational failure from top to bottom. He himself has not been, I guess, what you would have advertised when he was drafted number one. I personally had him at QB3 behind CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, just because at 5'10 and he's barely scratching 200 pounds, you've never really seen a quarterback succeed with those physical outliers. So you look at Kyler Murray and a Russell Wilson, but those are actually physical freaks if you think about it. Like Kyler's super fast, he's got a crazy arm. Russ had a crazy arm, even though his speed is diminished. Um, if you're gonna be that short, you have to be something has to be special physically for you to succeed in the NFL. And Bryce doesn't have that. But that still doesn't mean the Panthers haven't failed him. They failed him last season, firing his head coach only 11 games into the season. Um, Last year, the roster was atrocious. This year, the roster is atrocious, but it is a little bit better. Obviously, adding Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette in the draft, and they had a slight improvement in the offensive line. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough for Bryce to succeed, sadly.
Yeah, man, and dude, I put a lot of fault on this front office for sure, man. They really dropped the ball on this. They can't surround him with a succeeding team offensively, defensively, special teams. Obviously, he's only on offense. He's the quarterback, but in all aspects, you need the whole team to actually win games. But just to speak on Bryce's situation, it's just like the Panthers, they did all of this to get the number one pick in that year's draft, last year's draft. And they traded away three superstar assets that were in their mid 20s. Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers, DJ Moore to the Chicago Bears, and I can't remember the third guy. So please fill in, Justin, whenever you feel like it. But I know he was a superstar and he was in his mid 20s. So you're trading away three guys that can potentially help you get wins, get you into the playoffs, maybe go deep in the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe win your division. But you trade them away to try to get the number one pick and other assets. Okay, cool. That's what you guys want to do? Fine. Now you get the number one pick. You do not choose CJ Stroud, like you mentioned, or Anthony Richardson, like you mentioned. You go with Bryce Young. Yes, he was very intelligent in college. Yes, he has a nice arm. He could throw it deep, but he's a small guy, like you mentioned. Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, great comparisons. But he doesn't have the legs like them. And that is one aspect of their games that they can take to the football field and use it on an occasional basis. Bryce Young cannot. He's not a running quarterback. He's not a mobile quarterback. You see it out there. And okay, you choose Bryce. You want to go with that. That's fine. Cool. But now you have a bad season because you want to start the rookie quarterback who goes into a whole different league, a whole different ball game in football. From college to the pros is completely different. They're faster, they're stronger, they're more intelligent, they're more strategic, they're very well coached. The list goes on and on. And you expect him to go out there and give you a winning season off the rip? No, man. And then the second year, now you start off 0-2 and you're like, okay, now we're going to give up on this guy and we're going to put in the backup. I don't agree with that, man, because you're ruining the guy's confidence. He's gonna be out there thinking that he can't do it, that he can't play, that he doesn't belong. And next thing you know, Andy Dalton gets in the games and he does poorly. Now you want Bryce to go back in the game, and what is Bryce gonna do? Oh yeah, coach, I'm gonna go out there. Don't worry, I'm gonna put the team on my shoulders. No, you're gonna diminish his confidence. He's not gonna be thinking the same. He's gonna go out there and do way more mistakes than he did already. So in my opinion, man, it was a bad move for the Panthers, bro, and they should have just kept rolling with the Bryce Young trade and keeping it going, man. It is what it is. The outcome, it is what it is, bro.
I think probably their biggest fear would be losing the locker room just because the way they were losing was so bad. But I mean, as you mentioned, what can you really expect from Andy Dalton at this stage of his career? I would assume not much. Um, I know Twitter was in arms when Bryce Young had to throw like he had to jump in the air to complete passes last week against the Chargers. But at the end of the day, like you said, you've made your bed. You probably should lay it. And at this point, you at least got to trade him because you can't expect to just put him back. Like you can't just put him back in November as a starter and just think everything will be perfectly fine. His confidence was already, it seemed to be diminished. So now, as you mentioned again, they probably just completely stepped on it and obliterated it. And hopefully he can build it back up and remember who he was in college and some of the stuff he can do. But for now, it's just a sad, sad story in Carolina.